Hey folks, Invest IQ here with investing ideas, earnings, picks, and options plays. So we got another earnings chart for you. This one is SPB is the ticker symbol, Spectrum Brands Holdings Inc. So we're taking a look at an earnings chart here going back to 2013 and going up to May of 2022. So now remember, when you look at these and you see the 1 day chart, the 3 day chart, and the 5 day chart, what those represent is if you had bought at the close the day before earnings and you had sold at the close 1 day after earnings, 3 days, and 5 days, right? So green line is 1 day, blue is 3, orange is 5. And that's not compounding, it's really just stacking up the gains across each of those trades on a per earnings basis to see if you would have been positive for a gain loss at the end of that period of time. So let's take a look at the win rate. So 55% win rate for 1 day, 55 for 3 days, and 66 for 5 days. And for the average gain and loss, so after 1 day, 1.15%, 3 days is 1.29%, and 5 days is 1.92%. Average across all is 1.45. So we did have some folks ask about, what exactly those mean. And I think it's important to remember that, when you see this figure and it says 1.92, it doesn't mean that, on average, you might see close to a 1.92%. It means that you might have had an earnings, that was down 10% one quarter and up 12% another quarter, down 4% the next quarter, and up 16% the next quarter, etc. And when you average it all out and you say, well, on average, did you win? That's what the 1.92 is. And I know we will be changing up the charts a little bit in the next month or two, and we'll be adding what the average gain is and what the average loss is, so you folks can get a better idea of that as well. But and of course, when you're asking yourself, well, how many of them would be wins and how many losses, that's what this is. So for a 5 day, if you had bought at the close the day before earnings and sold at the close 5 days after earnings day, 66% of the time you would have won. And over that period of time, the average win would have been the average percentage of a win would be 1.92%. So let's take a quick look at the EPS trend. So, looks like there's probably some seasonality here. Yeah, and then let's take a look at what the volume is like. So volume 300K on average per day, 300,000 shares. So not too bad. Yeah, this is an okay looking chart. Nothing crazy. I think, like always, you've got to have a catalyst, and you kind of got to plan for it and sort of see whether this is something that you would play with. In this case, I'm not even sure if there is options. I don't think there's that much in the way of volume, so probably not. Or at least nothing you can really play with. But the 5 day probably looks the best, and if it was the right environment, folks might think it's a good play. I don't know. If you think it is, let us know in the comments. Hit the like button, leave us your commentary, leave us your questions, and don't forget to subscribe, and as well hit the little bell button so that you'll get notifications when we put out new videos. And that's about it, folks. Thanks for watching, as always.